probably tell, I am alone today. Um, if you're on YouTube, you can see that there are no guests in the studio. It is just me. So today is actually going to be a quite short, quite short show, as we are just going to kind of recap the past 3 episodes that we've had here on Deconstructing the American Dream. And then I'll also talk a little bit more about why I started this show and kind of my own dream for this show and for this topic. Goodness, this thing's like kind of in the way. Oh, there we go. Hi. Goodness. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, folks. I'm gonna ask you to bear with me this morning. It is quite awkward doing these things alone, so I will do my best. So give me 1 second here. I just want to check something real quick. Like I said, folks, it is quite difficult when you are doing a one-woman show, but we are going to knock it out this morning, and I'm confident. It is a beautiful Monday morning. The weather is amazing. Okay, back to Deconstructing the American Dream. So, one of the reasons why I started this show and some of the vision behind this show is that I noticed, well, as I said before previously, my field and my passion and my training kind of lies in journalism. I'm a senior media studies major here at Wright State. I'm also a student journalist. I worked at our campus newspaper for 3 years. I was editor of it in my last year, and then now I do a lot of freelance journalism, and I am a fellow with the Society of Professional Journalists. I do this and some other things, and just am very involved in the journalism world. So with being involved in the journalism world, I get to interact with a lot of different people and a lot of different topics, and so I get to notice a lot of different things, and I get to notice kind of what is going on in our world, because I specialize especially in news, politics, and investigative news. So when throughout my course, in my walk, oh, I just found this, okay. So, like, throughout my course, in my work and doing journalism, some of the things, I covered COVID, I've covered, national elections, like, I covered election 2020, I covered midterms 2023, I've covered a lot of divisive stuff, and that's not to, like, brag, or, like, I'm not trying to, be like, oh, look at me, I'm just trying to explain some of the background. And as I was covering some of these very impactful events that not only had bearing on our local area, but that had bearing kind of on the world at large, I noticed there was a lot of conflict in our nation, especially since the pandemic. Our nation has faced a lot of struggles politically, socially, financially, all of these things. And we're seeing a lot of impact on our young folks, on our younger generations, or at least our younger generations are the ones that are speaking up the most. They, they have access to social media, they have access to technology. Look at me, I'm a young folk, I'm 20 years old, and I'm here on the radio station talking to you guys about all of this stuff. A lot of my listeners, you guys are probably also young. So, it is our younger generations that are starting to, talk about the different conflicts that they are noticing and the different struggles that they are facing, in their own personal lives, but also in their communities. So I started thinking, this is really kind of interesting of, looking at the struggles that they are facing and that we are facing, and how is it impacting our ideologies? How is it impacting, some of these things that we kind of grew up with and that were ingrained, in our brains? Because, growing up, as young people, we were always told, under that mentality, that classic American dream mentality of grow up, get a good 9 to 5, buy a house, get a car, have some kids, get married, all that. And that's just not the case. I don't have like top statistics off the top of my head, and I hate that. Because like as I said, I love to be a journalist, and I'd love to be factual. But that is just something that I noticed, that especially with the younger folks, they can't afford houses, they can't afford to have kids, or they are delaying that, and putting that off later in their lives. A lot of my own friends, they still live with their parents, and they still are just trying to get through college, or find a good paying job. So it's like, how has these mentalities shift, and how has these ideologies shift throughout throughout the years? And so that's kind of why I started Deconstructing the American Dream. That's why I kind of started this show, and that's kind of where the vision kind of came from. Also, like how we were talking about last week, I think it's very important, very, very important to critically think and to critically look at the people, institution, and structures that make up our society, the power that makes up our society, all these different things. We need to look at the world around us with a critical eye. Because once we look at the world around us with a critical eye, we can see what we're doing really good, and we can see what we need to work on, and how we can become better. That is why I do what I do. It's because I want to make the world better, and how I do that is by, holding others accountable, by looking at the world with a critical eye and with critical thought. And I know that was a lot of what we talked about last week. We also talked about last week a lot of sense of community and communities coming together, and how extremely important that is. And then to kind of lead off of that, the previous week we even talked about events that can bring communities together. They could be horrible events, like 9/11, but even if, a horrible event occurs, that could still be an opportunity to bring the community together. I mean, I look at the COVID-19 pandemic. It is absolutely horrible, but we can look at the ways that our community came together in that and helped one another, and maybe learn from that. So we talked about that in our second episode. In our first episode, if you'll remember all the way back, we're going back to the first week of September here. Goodness, I can't believe that we're already in our last week of September. So in the first week of September, we talked with a first generation student and an immigrant to the U.S., and they were talking also again about communities and their experience with what it was like to be American, and what the American dream meant to them, coming from kind of an outsider's perspective. So that is kind of what we have covered so far, and I want to continue to talk about that, because this show, as I've kind of mentioned it throughout all 3 episodes, it's given me a lot of hope, because as I mentioned at the top of this show, I've started this show because I noticed a lot of conflict, but even because we are facing conflict, and it feels like our nation and our generations and are at a very curious and very gentle place right now. Talking with all of our guests and exploring throughout all these episodes, there was a lot of hope, that we can still come together, and that we can still move on and make our own American dreams, and continue to dream, and to continue to work together to maintain those dreams and those goals. So it's given me a lot of hope. So I'm really excited to continue with the show, and to see what else we discover about ourselves, about our society, and about our ideals. So, coming up in the coming weeks, next week we'll be looking at the impact of media, because all media has a lot of impact, whether that be from, the news and journalism industry, to the entertainment industry, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen this. I get distracted very easily, but I saw this is coming from the Associated Press. The Writers Guild and Hollywood studios reached tentative agreement to end strike. No deal yet for actors. So, the entertainment strike may be coming to a close here soon, shortly. So we may even talk about that next week, because entertainment and the media we consume on our day-to-day basis heavily influences how we view each other and how we view those around us. And gives us context for different people and things. So, interesting. So we'll talk all about that, all the different aspects of media, probably one of my favorite subjects next week. And then following that, I love how I charged into this so confidently, acting like I knew my entire show off the top of my head, because I've only been working on it for 6 months. Okay, let's see here. So then, after we talk about media and the impact of media, we will then so after the impact of media, we will continue on to this is drum roll please, youth in America, which I just kind of rambled about extensively. Then after youth in America, we will talk about kind of the American military complex, and maybe hopefully we'll get to talk to some veterans or maybe even some active military folks and talk about what the American dream and what the American ideologies are from that perspective, because I feel like that is a very large perspective in our nation and a very important perspective to get. So, yeah. That's all that I really had. If you're still with me, thank you so much for listening to my rambling this morning and to all my I just feel like I spat out thoughts for a solid 19 minutes on live air. So, if you were wondering what does James' brain sound like on a day-to-day basis, you got a taste of it. So, if you're here and if you're listening to that at Monday morning on this lovely Monday morning at 9 in the morning, thank you. But yeah. Alrighty, so as I said, I'll catch you guys next week with the looking at media and the impact of media. We will have some guests for that one, so stay tuned for that, and thank you so much for continuing to listen to Deconstructing the American Dream here on WWSU 106.9 FM, Fairborn, Dayton. Y'all have a great morning and a great week.